Hey friends, so today I want to talk to you about dying to self. This is not a popular concept. In fact, it's quite difficult. But when your marriage is on life support, what do? Well, number one, you pray. Number two, you die to yourself. And number three, you don't give up. So let's talk about what death to self means. Death to self is when you die to having to have your way. You die to having to have the last word. You die to keeping your mouth shut. Listen to this. This is John 12:24. Jesus says, I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. I remember the first time I learned this concept, I was crying out to God on behalf of my marriage because I had a marriage where pretty much we were cohabitating. There wasn't a lot of love in the house. And I didn't really know what to do. I had done everything that I knew to do. And you know, that's one of the pitfalls of following the patterns of this world, because when we follow the patterns of this world, it really isn't going to breathe life into anything. And so I went to scripture and I remember thinking, I ought to try this Jesus stuff and see if it works. Y'all, it was February 2003. I'll never forget it. And this was one of the very first principles that I learned, that if I would die to myself, life would come into my marriage. And in fact, it says that in 2 Corinthians 4:12, it says, so death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. Death in me brings life in you. So what does that mean exactly, to die to yourself? Well, for me, when I was first learning this principle, it meant keeping my mouth shut when I really wanted to have the last word. That's a biggie. It meant, when my husband would walk out the door to go play golf and I had 2 small children and I was like, when is it going to be my turn? It was dying to self of complaining and nagging him. Dying to self meant during that period of time, I really didn't want to sleep with him at all or have any physical touch with him. But the Lord was telling me, you're going to have to die to yourself on that one. And can I tell you that as I learned to die to myself, life came into my marriage. Think of it as selfishness. Y'all, it is innate in us to be selfish. I mean, that is our go-to, is it not? We live in a what about me world. Well, if we want our marriage, if it is on life support and we want life in our marriage, one of the things that we have to do is die to ourselves and put the other person first. So, how can you die to yourself? Well, think about some of the examples that I just gave you. Do any of those things resonate? Ask Jesus, ask him, say, what do I need to do? How do you want me to die to self? It could be serving your husband. This morning even, I brought my husband coffee in bed. It was a way that I can serve him, die to myself. And y'all, the amazing thing is that death in me brings life in you. I can tell you from personal experience, death in me brought life into my marriage. And yeah, it started with one having to serve and die to self, but can I tell you that I have got it back exponentially, because my husband looks for ways to serve me and encourage me and bless me. And it all came from dying to self.